When I set out on the trail that morning, the Adirondacks were shrouded in a light mist, the kind that hovers just above the ground and makes everything look otherworldly. It was exactly what I needed. Solitude, silence, and a chance to clear my head. The stresses of life had been creeping up on me, and the quiet of the mountains promised to drown them out, if only for a few days. I'd always found peace in the wilderness, especially up here. The dense pine forests, the rugged terrain, the way the landscape seemed to stretch out forever. It was a place where the noise of the world couldn't reach me. So when I hit the trail that morning, I was feeling lighter than I had in months, ready to get lost in the woods for a while. The trail was narrow, winding up into the mountains, with towering pines on either side. The only sounds were the rhythmic crunch of my boots on the dirt path and the occasional rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. It was perfect. I'd picked a trail far from the more popular routes, hoping to avoid other hikers. I wanted this time for myself, away from the crowds. About 2 hours in, I stopped to take a break. I found a spot near a small stream, the water trickling over smooth stones in a soothing, steady rhythm. I sat on a fallen log, pulled out a granola bar from my pack, and let the serenity of the forest wash over me. The sun was starting to break through the mist, sending shafts of light through the trees, making everything feel just a little bit magical. But then, something changed. It was subtle at first. A shift in the air, a quieting of the forest around me. The birds that had been chirping just moments before fell silent, and the breeze seemed to still. I frowned, glancing around, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Just trees and rocks and the distant line of the trail snaking up the mountainside. Still, a strange unease settled in my gut, a feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. I chalked it up to paranoia, to being alone in the woods for too long. After all, the wilderness can play tricks on your mind, especially when you're not used to the quiet. I pushed the feeling aside, grabbed my pack, and started back on the trail. But the feeling didn't go away. In fact, as I hiked deeper into the forest, it only grew stronger. It was as if the trees were closing in on me, the shadows growing darker despite the rising sun. And that silence, it wasn't normal. The forest is never truly quiet, but now, it felt like the entire woods were holding their breath, waiting. About half a mile later, I stopped again, scanning the trees around me. That's when I heard it, a soft rustle, like something large moving through the underbrush. My heart skipped a beat, and I held my breath, listening. There it was again, closer this time, followed by a low, guttural sound that sent a chill down my spine. Probably just a bear, I whispered to myself, though my voice didn't carry the confidence I hoped it would. Bears were common in these woods, and as long as I didn't bother them, they wouldn't bother me. At least, that's what I told myself. I adjusted my pack and started walking again, this time faster. But after only a few steps, the sound came again. Closer now, too close. The underbrush rustled violently, and I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Then, I saw it. At first, it was just a shadow between the trees, a hulking figure that made my brain scream bear. But as it moved into the light, I realized with a sickening lurch in my stomach that it wasn't a bear at all. It was massive, standing at least 8 feet tall, covered in dark, matted hair. Its shoulders were broad, its arms long, and its hands, no, claws, were thick and powerful. But it was the face that terrified me the most. It was a twisted blend of man and beast, with a flat nose, deep-set eyes that gleamed with a dark intelligence, and a mouth full of sharp, yellowed teeth. It wasn't human. But it wasn't just an animal either. For a moment, I couldn't move. My body refused to respond as I stared at the creature, trying to process what I was seeing. It was like something out of a nightmare, a monster pulled from the depths of some ancient legend. And it was watching me, those eyes locking onto mine with a cold, calculating gaze. Then it growled, a deep rumbling sound that vibrated through my bones, and took a step toward me. That was enough to snap me out of my frozen state. I turned and ran, my legs moving on instinct, pushing me forward through the trees. I could hear the creature behind me crashing through the underbrush with a speed that seemed impossible for something so large. The ground blurred beneath my feet as I sprinted down the trail, my heart pounding in my chest. But no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was right behind me, gaining on me with every step. The sounds of its pursuit grew louder, the trees shaking as it barreled through the forest like a freight train. I stumbled, nearly losing my footing on the uneven trail, but I forced myself to keep going, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I didn't dare look back. I couldn't. If I saw how close it was, I knew I'd freeze again, and that would be the end of me. The trail curved sharply ahead, and I veered off it, plunging into the thick trees. My only thought was to lose it in the dense forest, to make it harder for the creature to follow me. But as I crashed through the underbrush, ducking under branches and leaping over fallen logs, I realized how hopeless that plan was. The thing behind me wasn't just fast, it was relentless, and it was smart. It was driving me deeper into the woods, away from any chance of escape. I broke through a thicket of bushes and found myself in a small clearing, the ground covered in pine needles. I stopped, gasping for breath, my chest burning. The silence closed in around me again, oppressive and heavy. The only sound was my own ragged breathing. For a moment I thought I'd lost it. But then, I heard a low growl from the trees behind me. I turned slowly, my heart hammering in my throat. The creature stepped into the clearing, moving with a terrifying grace for something so large. Its eyes locked onto mine again, and I could see the intelligence behind them, the cold, calculating mind of a predator that knew exactly what it was doing. It wasn't just hunting me, it was toying with me. I backed up slowly, my mind racing for a plan, any plan. But there was nowhere to run. The creature advanced, its growl rumbling through the clearing, and I knew that this was it. There was no escape, no help, just me and the monster in the woods. Suddenly, it lunged. I threw myself to the side, hitting the ground hard as its massive form barreled past me. I scrambled to my feet, my hands clawing at the dirt, and I realized with a sickening clarity that it wasn't trying to kill me outright. It was playing with me, like a cat with a mouse. I couldn't let it end like this. I wouldn't. My eyes darted around the clearing, searching for anything I could use as a weapon. That's when I saw it. A large, jagged rock near the edge of the clearing. I didn't think. I just moved. I grabbed the rock, hefting its weight in my hand, and turned to face the creature. It was circling me now, its eyes gleaming with a cruel amusement. It knew I was cornered, and it was savoring the moment. But I wasn't going down without a fight. The creature lunged again, and this time I was ready. I swung the rock with all the strength I had left, connecting with the side of its head. The impact reverberated through my arm, and the creature let out a roar of pain and fury, staggering back. For a brief, shining moment, I thought I had a chance. But then, it recovered, shaking off the blow like it was nothing. It turned toward me, its eyes blazing with rage now, and I knew that I had only made it angrier. I backed up slowly, my hands trembling, the rock slipping from my grasp. The creature snarled, a sound that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, and I knew that this time, it wasn't going to play. It was going to finish me. Just as it was about to strike, a sharp, loud noise echoed through the clearing. A gunshot. The creature froze, its head snapping toward the sound, and for the first time, I saw something like fear flash in its eyes. Another shot rang out, and the creature let out a howl of rage, retreating into the trees with a speed that left me breathless. I collapsed to the ground, my body trembling uncontrollably as the adrenaline finally left me. A moment later, a man emerged from the trees, a rifle in his hands and a grim expression on his face. He looked at me, then at the spot where the creature had disappeared, and shook his head. "You're lucky," he said, his voice rough. "That thing doesn't usually leave survivors." I stared at him, too shocked to respond. He helped me to my feet, and together, we made our way back to the trail, back to safety. As we walked, he told me stories. Stories of strange creatures in the woods, of people who had disappeared without a trace. Stories that just hours before I would have dismissed as nonsense. But now, I knew better. I never went back to the Adirondacks after that. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those cold, calculating eyes watching me from the shadows, waiting for the moment when I would let my guard down again. And I knew, deep down, that if I ever did return, it would be waiting for me.